When Raquel Welch passed away in 2023, the world mourned the loss of a timeless beauty and a silver screen legend. But as the tributes faded and the headlines moved on, her elegant Beverly Hills estate nestled just off Benedict Canyon Drive sat in silence. For months, it remained empty, suspended in time like a forgotten film set, until we bought it. We weren't star chasers. We were just a couple from Oregon, Mark and Joanna R., looking to settle in LA after a decade of running an online business. We had no idea what we were walking into. What follows is our account of the 6 strangest months of our lives. And no, we don't live there anymore. We bought the property in early 2024. It wasn't cheap, but the price was strangely below market. Real estate agents whispered about bad vibes and difficult energy, but nobody had anything concrete to say. They danced around it like LA always does when it's trying not to spook a sale. It was beautiful in a vintage way. Spanish Revival, terracotta tiles, arched doorways, heavy wooden doors. The kind of house that felt like it held secrets in the walls. Raquel had lived there for decades. She'd modernized parts of it, new appliances, updated bathrooms, but kept the bones of the original structure. We moved in March. First, everything was quiet. Then the little things started. There was an old mirror in the upstairs hallway. We didn't notice it during the walkthroughs, but once we moved in, it felt out of place. Not antique, not decorative, just wrong. Narrow, floor length, with a faint film on the glass, like it hadn't been cleaned in years. One night, I passed it on the way to bed and thought I saw someone standing behind me. Tall woman, still. I turned fast, nothing there. I chalked it up to being tired. But Joanna started seeing her too. She'd walk by and catch a flash of silver hair, or a hand resting lightly on her shoulder, except she was alone. She refused to look in the mirror after dark. Eventually, we covered it with a sheet. That helped, until the sheet started falling off on its own, always around 2 or 3 in the morning. We called a contractor to remove it. He said it wasn't bolted into the wall. It was part of the wall. The glass had been poured directly into a carved recess in the plaster. It had been there since the house was built. That was when things really escalated. There was one room that had been locked when we moved in. The listing agent said it was a personal space Raquel had used, maybe a meditation or costume room, and that it would be cleared out before sale. But it never was. The door was heavy and wooden, with a curved arch. We tried the key we were given. It didn't fit. Then one night, we woke up to a click and found the door wide open. Inside, the air was freezing. The room was empty except for a faint scent of gardenias and a faded chaise lounge. The wallpaper was peeling, and the floor was warped. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling on a cord, swaying slightly. Joanna stepped inside and immediately backed out. She said she heard whispering. I didn't hear anything at first, but over the next few days I started hearing Raquel Welch's voice. Not conversational, performative, like a line from a film. Always the same words. Don't turn away. They'll forget you if you turn away. I Googled it. It wasn't from any of her movies. We stopped inviting people over. Something about the house made guests uncomfortable. One friend stayed the night and left at 3 a.m., saying he saw someone standing at the edge of the pool, staring at him through the guest bedroom window. We checked our security cameras. There was no one there, but the feed glitched at exactly the time he described. A 30-second blank spot, static-filled. Then it resumed. We started seeing shadows too. Always outside. Always just at the edge of the property line. Sometimes, I'd hear the back gate open and close, but no one was there. Then Joanna got sick. Not physically, but mentally. She became obsessed with old movies. Not just Raquel's, all of them. She'd watch 60s films late into the night, chain-smoking like a Hollywood starlet, whispering lines to herself. She started dressing like it was 1968. She told me the house wanted her, that it was feeding her memories. We left in September. We didn't sell. We just walked away. Let the bank take it. The last night in the house, I went into the mirror room alone. The sheet was gone again. I looked into the mirror, just once, and saw her. Not Raquel as she was when she died. Not the older, graceful woman, but young, stunning, and cold. Her eyes locked on mine, and she spoke again. "They'll forget you if you leave. This is the only way to be remembered." I don't know how I got out. I don't remember packing. I just remember Joanna and I driving through the canyon with dawn breaking behind us. We live in a condo now. 3rd floor. No mirrors except in the bathroom. The house is still empty, but sometimes I check Zillow, and the mirror is still there. The silence in the house grew thicker after we tried to walk away from it. We hadn't officially returned not to live, but something about the way we left, that unfinished escape in the early morning light, left a splinter in both our minds. We moved into a condo near Burbank, modern and sterile, all white walls and LED lights, the kind of place where memory had no anchor. But the house followed us. First it was dreams, always of the same hallway, with the same dusty floorboards and that cursed mirror, half lit by moonlight leaking through the narrow arched window. I dreamed I was back there, walking barefoot toward the glass. My reflection never matched my movements. I would raise my hand, and the figure inside the mirror would tilt her head instead, as if considering me from some great distance. And always, the scent of gardenias lingered, cloying and almost sweet enough to hide the rot beneath it. Joanna stopped sleeping altogether. She started keeping notebooks. She filled them with sketches, detailed drawings of the interior of the house. Rooms we had never entered. Hallways that didn't exist on the blueprint. A small, windowless chamber with red curtains. A staircase leading downward, spiraling into black. I asked her where she was getting it from. She said, "She's showing me. Every night. She's showing me where the house really is." I tried burning one of the notebooks. I did it in the alley behind the building, after Joanna fell asleep from exhaustion. I watched the pages blacken, curl, and finally fall into ash. I felt relief. Closure, maybe. The next morning, it was back on the kitchen table. Unburned. Pristine. There were things we didn't say aloud anymore. We didn't talk about the day the mirror first opened. Because that's what it felt like, in retrospect, not just a reflection, not just glass, but a door. We didn't talk about the fact that Joanna had started calling it her. Not Raquel. Not the ghost. Just her. We didn't talk about the reflection that wasn't always hers. And we didn't talk about the voice on the answering machine. We'd kept the old landline as a backup. It rang once at 2:44 a.m. We let it go to voicemail. The message that played afterward wasn't distorted, wasn't eerie in the usual way. It was clear, confident. A woman's voice, low and familiar, like someone reciting a line they'd spoken 100 times before on camera. "You don't belong anywhere else. Come home." I left everything ready. Joanna played it 17 times. I counted. On the 8th day of no sleep, Joanna looked at me with the first real clarity I'd seen in her in weeks. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was steady. She didn't die in the hospital. Not really. Not all of her. "You know that, right?" I didn't answer. I think some part of me did know. The house had kept something. Or maybe she had left something in it intentionally. A tether. A version of herself, beautiful and terrible, fed by every flickering moment the cameras once adored. You don't spend 60 years being stared at and not leave some of that behind. We went back. Not with suitcases. Just to see it again. To say goodbye. That's what we told each other. It was dusk when we arrived. The canyon air was still and thick with the smell of eucalyptus. The house was exactly as we'd left it. The driveway untouched. The bougainvillea overgrown, creeping up the wrought iron fence like it was trying to reclaim the house for itself. But the front door was open, just slightly ajar. And inside, the lights were on. Not the overhead lights. Raquel had hated harsh lighting, according to the old interviews Joanna had obsessed over. No, these were warm table lamps. Golden, gentle, stage lighting, mood lighting, the kind that flatters the angles of a face, that makes shadows deeper and eyes more dangerous. The living room looked like a set, not just styled, but arranged, as if waiting for a scene to be filmed. And the mirror was uncovered, waiting. I didn't want to move, but Joanna was already inside. She walked slowly, reverently, like she was returning to a cathedral. She touched the back of the velvet armchair, ran her fingers along the edge of the marble mantel. Her face looked different here, softer, more certain. She belonged here and I didn't. She turned to me and said, "She's not angry. She's just lonely." And then she looked into the mirror. I reached for her hand, but there was no reflection. Only Joanna's side of the room, empty. Then a figure stepped forward from within the glass. Not Raquel. Not exactly. It was her at 25, eyes smoky with eyeliner, hair in soft waves, lips curled into a perfect, performative smile. But the expression behind it wasn't warmth. It was hunger, and something deeper, a kind of hollow glamour, like staring into the sun through a veil of water. She lifted her hand inside the mirror, placed it against the glass. Joanna did the same. I shouted. I don't remember what I said. I just remember the light changing, the room shifting. For a moment, I felt like I was falling upward, like gravity had broken, and everything was being pulled toward the mirror. Then it was over. I was alone. Joanna was gone, and her reflection never came back. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The silence after Joanna disappeared was different from the silence before. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else in its place. A static weight in the air. A kind of charged hush, like a room waiting for its cue to breathe again. I stood there for what might have been minutes or hours, staring at the empty space where she'd been, where her body had been, her voice, her warmth. But the mirror was still there, perfect, immaculate, smooth as ice and dark as oil. Her fingerprints were gone from the glass. I didn't touch it. I didn't scream. I turned away. And in that moment, I knew I was not leaving the house until I understood what it wanted. The living room was exactly as we had left it months ago, but changed in the way memories change when they start curdling. The air smelled faintly of hairspray and cedarwood. A dry perfume, like someone had just stepped out of a dressing room. Every object felt placed not used. The books on the shelves had a uniform thin layer of dust. Not thick, but undisturbed. I noticed a single cigarette still burning in the ashtray on the piano. Fresh, real. But there was no sound, no footsteps, no creak of floorboards, just the faint hum of something deeper in the house. That's when I heard the click. Soft, deliberate, a mechanical sigh, echoing from the hallway upstairs. The mirror room. I moved slowly, not out of fear, but reverence, like entering a place where time moved differently. The house seemed darker now. Not night, not shadows, but like something inside it was dimming the light around itself. The walls felt closer. The plaster beneath the paint had begun to crack in hairline veins, fine and deliberate, like something ancient was trying to reveal itself from within. At the top of the stairs, the mirror room's door was slightly open. It hadn't been before. Inside, the air was cool, unnaturally so. The kind of cold you feel in your gums and fingers. The room had changed. The chaise lounge was still there, but it had been reupholstered in deep crimson. The sheet that once covered the mirror had been folded neatly on the floor beneath it, as if someone had taken the time to preserve it, not discard it. And now, in front of the mirror, sat an old film camera on a tripod. Not digital. Vintage. The kind Raquel might have used in the 60s, bulky, beautiful, and absolutely wrong. It was aimed directly at the glass. I approached it slowly. The viewfinder was cracked, but still functional. When I looked through it, the mirror was different. Not the room I stood in. Not a reflection. A set. A bedroom lit by soft amber sconces. Velvet drapes half drawn. The same chaise lounge, but newer. A dressing table, cluttered with compacts and perfume bottles. And in the far corner, just barely visible, a woman brushing her hair in slow, dreamlike strokes. She was humming. A tune I couldn't place, but somehow knew. I pulled back from the viewfinder. The mirror, in reality, showed only myself. Alone. But through the lens. She was still there. The woman turned her head slowly, as if she knew I was watching. Her face wasn't visible, just the edge of her cheek, her painted lips, and the glint of an earring. But even in profile, I knew it was Joanna. She was in the mirror. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the glass. But something inside me whispered, that's what it wants. Instead, I sat down in the high-back chair by the window and stared at the reflection. I waited. The camera hummed softly. The woman moved to the dressing table, picked up a letter. She began to read. Her lips moved soundlessly, but the words bloomed inside my head as if whispered from behind the walls. They remember the version of me they want. But I am still here. I kept the best parts. I kept the eyes, the hands, the silence. Joanna's voice, but wrong. Too slow, too polished. It had the texture of a recorded line, played back decades later, warped just slightly by time. I whispered her name. Nothing. Then the woman in the mirror, my Joanna, tilted her head and looked directly into the lens of the camera. Not the mirror. The camera. My blood turned to ice. She was looking back at me, through it. Not as a trapped figure. Not as a ghost. But as someone who had become a part of the house. Of its performance. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed in the room, sitting quietly with the camera, the mirror, the version of Joanna who was now someone else entirely. Every hour, the image shifted. Different rooms. Different eras. Sometimes it was Raquel herself dressed in gowns that shimmered like liquid, seated beneath a single spotlight as if waiting to be interviewed. Sometimes it was strangers, people I didn't recognize, walking the halls in silence, moving their lips in voiceless conversation. Faces lost to time, but trapped in some private screening loop. The mirror wasn't just a mirror. It wasn't even just a door. It was an archive, a performance loop, a space where the beautiful moments of the house had been stored, played, and replayed until they imprinted themselves into its very structure. Every glance, every spoken line, every betrayal whispered behind a closed door. All of it was still happening, and the house wanted me to watch. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up to the smell of gardenias, and someone knocking softly from the inside of the mirror. The knock came again, soft, rhythmic, too human to ignore. I sat frozen in the chair, my body aching with the weight of hours spent watching the mirror perform its slow, intimate ballet of memory. Joanna had disappeared into it. First her voice, then her body, then the version of her that walked the halls of that reflection as if she had never left. She was there, but it wasn't just her anymore. The house had taken her, or maybe she had given herself to it. I rose finally as the knock came once more. 3 gentle taps, the kind that precede a whisper. The mirror's surface remained glassy and calm, but behind it, through the camera's lens, the hallway was empty. No sign of Joanna. No figure brushing her hair. Just the dressing table and the mirror's version of the room I stood in. But I wasn't in it. No reflection of me. Only the room, polished and untouched, as though I had never entered it at all. And then, slowly, the glass began to fog from the inside. A smear of warmth where there should be none. A handprint, delicate, feminine, pressed flat against the other side of the glass. I stepped closer, breath held. My fingers hovered inches from the spot where hers touched the glass. I didn't press against it. I didn't want to cross whatever threshold had already taken her. Instead, I whispered her name. Joanna. The fog shifted. Her face emerged, just her eyes, blinking, lips parted slightly. There was fear in her expression, yes, but not the kind that begs for help. The kind that warns. Behind her, the dressing room shifted. The wallpaper bled color. The corners of the image darkened as if the film inside the mirror was warping, burning slowly from the edges inward. The mirror wasn't just showing me the past anymore. It was showing me its end. Joanna's face began to flicker, overlaid with others. Raquel. A dozen unnamed women. Smiling, staring, weeping in silence. Some were glamorous. Some were pale and crumbling, their eyes too wide, mouths frozen in a scream. One after another. Flashbulbs of sorrow. Their faces repeated, overlapped, looped like celluloid caught in a projector. And then the camera, which had sat cold and quiet beside me, began to turn. It moved, on its own. Its lens tilted upward, then downward, then settled directly on me. I didn't run. I didn't scream. Somewhere, I think I understood that it was offering a choice. To join. To become part of it, this endless library of echoes. This performance stitched from memory and vanity and obsession. The house had been built for someone to be seen, loved, captured. But the moment that love ended, when the eyes turned away, that was the moment the house clung to most. It didn't want fame. It wanted remembrance. And it would trap anyone willing to be remembered. The mirror brightened once more. Pure, golden light, so soft, so inviting. I saw myself there now. My own reflection. But it wasn't me as I was. It was me, younger, clean-shaven, smiling the way I used to in old photos. Joanna stood beside me in that reflection, in a dress she never owned, holding my hand. And we were happy. The perfect moment, suspended like a freeze frame. A fantasy, an offer. But I saw behind it now. The seams, the flicker of the illusion, the endless loop of sadness that followed each smile. The house didn't just capture beauty, it fed on it. Replayed it until it decayed. Until the people inside became images. Footage. Phantoms. I backed away. Slowly. Deliberately. The mirror did not shatter. The camera stopped turning. And Joanna's face, my Joanna, faded from view. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched as I turned and left the room. I don't remember leaving the house. Not the walk down the stairs. Not the front door. Not the drive through the canyon. But I remember the feeling. The ache in my chest. The pressure behind my eyes. Not from fear. From grief. I live in Oregon now. A small cabin near the coast. No mirrors except the one above the sink. I don't keep photographs. I don't speak to anyone who knew us back then. But I still see her. Sometimes in the corner of the window when the light hits it just right. Sometimes in dreams where the film never ends. She's beautiful. She's timeless. And she never ages. Because inside that house, inside the mirror, the show always goes on. And the camera never stops watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.